to the RunRX Podcast, where we talk about all things running. As many runners know, it's 90% mental. So join Coach Valerie and Coach Caroline as we go through the mental side of running.
Welcome back to the RunRX Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Caroline, and I'm here with Coach Valerie. Coach Valerie, for years, we've heard people talk about the runner's high. Can you explain what you think that is and basically how do I get there?
Right. Well, one of the interesting things with running is, a lot of people disconnect from running. And what I mean by that is when people sign up for a race or they go out for a run, a lot of times they'll put on music or their headphones, definitely a watch, right? And we have all of this data, like how far you went, how fast you went, your heart rate, you name it. You can get all of this data. And so people start to kind of feel their run through their data, or maybe they set their run goal as how far they went or how fast they went. I rarely really hear people talk about how they ran. And so when I first, by the way, when I always go, of course, I did a lot of racing in my day. I'm just really a recreational runner, but anyone that knows me, I love running. I like running, like the act of running, the exercise component of running. And, and one of the interesting things is that when I was first running, I was getting injured, like a lot of people, it was, when I started running, I did the same thing. I bought running shoes and I went running. I didn't think about, do I know how to run? Of course I know how to run. Everyone knows how to run. It wasn't even a question.
Right. They always say, put one foot in front of the other. Isn't that,
right?
Isn't that how you run?
Right. And then it's like, when you want to run faster, well, just chase somebody. And by the way, if anyone that's done racing knows that there is definite validity to that. There's, when you're with a group of people and someone's behind you or someone's in front of you, that's part of the runner's high, is that feeling, that thrill of going a little faster or getting in front of someone, all of that, which, as a kid you've done before, right? Race you to that tree. You used to say that. So what's interesting is when I got into marathon training, when the marathon became everything, you had to get so many miles in, you had to get so many runs in. Running became less about the feeling of running as more of make sure you got your run in, right? And then that becomes your high, that you got the run done, right? And then if you miss your run, there's panic, oh my gosh, I got to get my run in. And so for a lot of people, they'll say to me, running is my stress release. And then it's funny, and this because you're a mind coach, you're like, well, actually running is causing you a lot of stress.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not really using it as the stress release it should be, and it can be. So unfortunately, it took injury for me too, guys. Same thing. I was kept hitting the wall with the same injury on my marathons. When I finally figured out, oh, there's a way to run, I learned about it. Immediately, by the way, I was like, okay, how fast are you going to fix me? Because I've got a race already in 3 months, which is just how our runners still come in. And my coach at the time said, well, first, you don't even know what running is. What is running? It just flat out says, ask me, what is running? And I was like, running is running. It's my release. It's my love. I love running. And he's like, what is running, Valerie? And I'm like, I don't know.
Right. But if you know what you're asking me.
Why are you putting me on the spot? And the reality is, he's right. I didn't understand running and what is running. And the beauty of running, guys, running is free falling. And yes, it's natural, absolutely 100%. However, unless you're really use running as something you do a lot, you're not going to really get that much better at it, right? So for those of us that come into running as an adult, or my background's not track and field, so for us, we really have to work on the skill of running and learn how to run. And not just how to free fall, but how to pull your foot up. There's an action of running, and there's a really cool running pose. And once you realize there's a gait cycle, and there's a way to learn how to run and how to be more efficient, what's so nice is that it does become your natural run. And when you learn how to run and work with nature, and you learn how to really run, then there it is. Like all of a sudden, when we see this, guys, we see this so often, and it never gets old. When people really discover running, the joy for them, it's insane, right? And it doesn't mean they're all of a sudden faster. They usually are. They can run longer. They're certainly pain free, but they've never connected with moving, with running, other than how far, how fast, their vertical oscillation, their cadence, you know what I mean? Their data, their heart rate, their stroke volume, all of that, which by the way, guys, once you understand running and you work on the movement and you get more efficient, then 100% all of that data can be so effective for you. But in the beginning, it needs to be about you connecting or reconnecting, really, right, with running. And we teach people how to use, say, well, and this is funny, Caroline. So, for example, and this is just being silly, but most runners will tell you that they really aren't good dancers. Have you heard this before?
I have heard that before, yeah.
I've witnessed it. And I'm one of those people. That's why I started teaching aerobics. Like, I love dancing. I'm not good at it. I'm pretty awkward, but I can step touch and I can keep a beat. So I realized, oh my gosh, I can put together movements and I can keep a beat. Therefore, I can actually teach group fitness classes, because guess what? Most of the people in my classes were very much like me. We love the dancing, we love moving, but we're really not very good. You'll be honest, we're not choreographers and we're not going to be in a dance video. However, I want to get a workout and I'll get my heart rate up. So when I started learning about running and I realized there's a running rhythm, there's a timing. It's called the timing of the pull. And you can use a metronome, you can use music, and you can learn a little bit like a dance how to work with your own body and your own body weight and gravity to run. It really is so much fun, but we do it through a series of drills. And I will say, you've been through this. A lot of our runners, when they first come in, oh my gosh, they feel so awkward, right?
Yeah, yes, totally. And they feel like we joke that it's kind of the platypus moment. You're like going through and like, I'm just like, I have a big bill and I can't walk, and you feel so odd. Totally.
Yeah. And it's funny because we work with all people. Like we've got a 65-year-old with a hip replacement that's doing really well right now. We've got, all the ages. We've got, younger people everywhere. And everyone can really come together and feeling awkward in these drills.
Yeah.
But what's so cool is like I said, we get to watch it. We get to watch people go from very uncomfortable to these aha moments where they start connecting with their movement and connecting with their body and just walking. We teach people how to walk. We teach you how to stand. We teach you how to sit. And all of a sudden you realize, like, oh my gosh, I have just not been moving as efficiently as I could have. And that's kind of where the fun comes in too. It's not like all of a sudden everything's, gosh, you're just like, we can giggle about it because we go through this. But I always tell people, like, this is the joy of working online. You get to work with other people going through the same thing, but in your home. Because when you go outside and run, you're not worried about what you look like. You're just running, right?
Right.
But the second we give you a drill, or the second we say to you, let's start working on your movement, everyone's like, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden I'm self-conscious. Yeah. And so that's kind of a fun thing too, is we help you work through, let go of those things, like, learn to work with yourself and your body. And all of a sudden people are like, the joy they have in their run, they realize like that was the high. I mean, it's endorphins, but the reality is when you connect with running, your body's really happy. And so of course is your mind.
Right. And everything is basically, it's those that are listening or have been listening for a while and haven't actually tried anything or are a little skeptical, you're going to think I'm a little crazy. But what they come back with, which is always such a joy, is it felt effortless. So we call it the runner's high, but it really is just this, your body's connected to the movement and it's feeling more weightless, and we joke that it's still hard, like breathing is hard, right? Yeah. But it feels effortless. It doesn't feel like such a struggle. And that's the high. And
Right.
so, and then what's so funny is when you first feel that, even if it's just for a small moment, they begin to chase the high, right?
Right.
They're
Right.
like, I felt it, I felt it. Oh, it's gone, it's
Right.
gone.
Right.
And so that's where I come in and work them through that mental anguish that you know, you caught it for a little bit. That's great. You caught that sale, you caught what you're doing, but why are you expecting your body to continue? You're not there yet that your body can continue to perform at that level. You've got to give it time to build up to that, but it will come. You just have to keep working on it. You have to stay consistent, keep trying it, keep working on it, and it will come. And then you got to, I hate to say it because we talk about this all the time with like strength, not only strength training, but self-care. You got to then not stop. Right. So everything you're doing to get to that point where you can feel it and you can hold it consistently, you got to then not stop it. You got to, maybe you don't have to do as much, but
Right.
just, you know, make sure that it's where it needs to be. So, I think that's a great place to end it, guys. That if you are interested in finding out more and maybe like, okay, I'm in, it's November. Let's start then, you know, I want to get going so I can start the new year. And maybe I want to run on the treadmill during the winter or something like that so that I can run outside come March. This is like the perfect time. So go ahead and go to runrx.fit and you'll see work with RunRX. And if you have any questions or you want us to answer a question on our podcast, go ahead and go to support@runrx.fit. That's support@runrx.fit. And we will talk to you next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us on the RunRX podcast. If you'd like to know more, join us at www.runrx.fit. And if you have additional questions that you'd like answered on the podcast, email us at support@runrx.fit.